go through different phases of, um, more or less child birth rates. We're just kind of in this kind of downturn right now where everyone's kind of on this super liberal global homo kick, and so we're going down into the trough. But just like I don't know about you guys, but when I was a teenager, I grew up in a very conservative family, um, you know Christian, Catholic, and like Republican. And then I moved to fucking San Francisco to get away from all that kind of shit. But the opposite is also true, right? There will be people who grow up in a super liberal atheist home who will rebel against that also. And I mean, so there's always going to be this ebb and flow and push and pull. And so I think yeah, we're in kind of a shitty situation right now. But and obviously there is the kind of caveat where America, the demographics in America in the next coming decades are kind of another wrench thrown in the mix. But I don't know. Hopefully we can figure shit out.
A couple of people just popped in.
Hello, guys.
Hey.
Hello.
I took forever to notice you guys. Hey.
Got your third world immigration.
But despite the timeouts I've invaded, and in a matter of seconds, your Goy stream has become 40% non-Goy.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I like you guys, so I'm willing to go crazy and extend it once in a while.
Wait, Monsieur, are you part Jewish? Is that true?
No, I'm a Chinese, which is.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah.
whenever I hear non-Goy, I just think Jewish. So yeah.
No,
forgive
he's a part of the pause, but it's okay. It's great. No, I'm kidding. I'm joking. Anyway. But no, hey guys. So did you hear anything about what we were talking about earlier at all?
Yes, making your own media, other stuff. I've been doing a lot of
Typical
hand
Goy shit.
So, yes.
Oh yeah, let's make our own alternate media channel so that we can't be censored. Typical Goy shit like that.
The problem with that, okay, and I'm being completely serious, it's not that the ability is not there because you've seen stuff like Gab and Patreon. It's that it actually just gets shut down once they start getting a foothold.
Yeah.
Isn't that? I mean, and that's kind of funny because when all of these dissident right people or whatever you want to call them, they get kicked off of Twitter, and then they said, oh, what about free speech? And then everyone said, oh, well, just create your own Twitter. And then they went out and did that. They created Gab, and then all of a sudden Gab gets shut down. Oh, well, just create your own internet. It's just like the goalposts keep moving.
Just create your own federal government, Goy. It's not hard.
Well, no, but that's the problem.
It doesn't even work either. I think we discussed in my stream. Even a small country like Burkina Faso in 1983, when Thomas Sankara came to power, said he wasn't going to pay back the debt to the French. In '87, the French sponsored a coup against him, had him assassinated. This is like a very poor landlocked country, but you can't have anybody stand up to global homo.
Wait,
Yeah.
Just make your own planet, Goy.
Yeah. Oh God.
Wait, no, planets. What are you talking about? We live on a flat Earth. Planets are fake and gay. Space is fake and gay.
Oh God. But no, actually, I think that the appropriate response over time is just going to be regular balkanization sooner or later anyway. So like, I think it'll be easier to do things like create your own, like not internet, but like media corporations and so on. Because if you, the major issue in my opinion is that you will be like sanctioned, censored, so on and so forth. But if you are in control of the infrastructure itself, like
Still problematic. I mean, look at the countries that stand up, like Iran, they're under incredible pressure.
Yeah. Well, no, I
And-
know, but we are bigger than Iran. We have more resources, and we have a higher IQ.
Okay, but that doesn't change the basic problem that you're going to get extreme opposition.
Yeah, the entire power structure of the country is against you, pretty much. And like the amount that would be sympathetic to something like this, it really can't be a large number. It's hard to measure these things. I think a lot of people are against what we might call like, you know, tranny lemonade all day, every day, but they're never going to take the step to say, well, let's reject, I don't know, egalitarianism, or let's make a white ethno state, or any of the radical proposals. Even something like neo-reaction, which is relatively milquetoast, it's never going to fly.
Well, I mean, we're kind of in purgatory right now, where we have, we're living in a time where we have these boomer types who still believe in the old America, and they're on one hand they're keeping white America afloat in a sense, right? I mean, these are the people that elected Trump and all this kind of stuff. These are the people who wanted the wall to be built. But in a couple decades, when these people are no longer a political force, we're gonna see, in my opinion, we're gonna see a huge shift in the kind of how do you put it? The kind of mentality that people, like once Texas and Florida go blue, and Republicans will never be able to, have political power again. We're gonna see a huge shift in the way that people analyze problems, I think, if that makes sense.
Well, once certain places go somewhere, there's not necessarily a turning back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So basically, Gen Z, these teenagers, these Zoomers, every single component of Gen Z supports Trump more than their elders. Unfortunately, the racial demographics are also shifting at the same time. So it's a race between people not liking what's going on and demographic change.
Well, it's not even a race. I mean, demographic change is inevitable. We've already lost the race.
So the point is that you have to balance people waking up with a very I hate to say it, but it's a relatively likely chance of Brazil Norte.
I think it's very likely, and it's actually really depressing, but I think that is the case.
I mean, Monsieur, when you say we have to balance waking people up, I mean, I think it's actually...
No, it's a race between the two forces. You understand?
No, I don't even agree. It's not even a race. I mean, one, we've already lost the demographic issue. I mean, the demographics are going to change, whether we do anything about it or not. I mean, unless we start like kicking out all the Mexicans tomorrow, like forced deportation, we've already lost the demographic race, if you want to call it that. And because of that, that is going to cause an inevitable shift in the kind of waking people up. People are going to wake up once they see that we've already lost the demographic race. I mean, in my opinion, I don't even think this is an opinion. In my analysis, and trying to be as objective as possible, I think it's kind of more like a domino effect than a race. The demographic issue will knock over the domino of the idea of white nationalism, or the idea of balkanization, or whatever you want to call it.
Well, if we become Brazil Norte, then basically the remaining white population retreats within these walled cities and overlooks the vast sprawling favelas of our brand new country, which is going to be great. And after that, you are going to feel what I feel and what Babs feels basically every day. The feeling of being like a small, outnumbered, elite minority inside.
I live in California. I live in.
You already experienced it. Like this is this is like now you can look over the goys, the teeming brown masses. It's not actually something I would recommend. I think that having a sense of national unity is far better because the alternative is like you have to always keep your doors locked and people break in.
I'm with you. I'm with you. I'm on board. This is why I advocate. Well, this is why I think that the inevitable balkanization should be embraced.
Yeah, and Monsieur, I'm sure you would agree that national unity requires ethnic unity. I would assume, right? You would agree?
Yes, or at least a belief in such.
Well, what do you mean? How is that different?
Well, you can just lie to people. You can just tell them they're all the same. But that has to be backed up with something real, so to speak. But essentially, like, there's only so much distance that can be bridged. Like, when you start this country, it's like white Anglo people and some Northwest, Germanic type people only, right?
No.
When you bring in more
I'm afraid
people,
the Italians are going to have to go, Ovi.
Right. when you bring in more people, like the Italians are a little different, but you're able to play the shell game and eventually say like you're all the same. Eventually, people believe it. But the more you have to stretch this blanket from the core identity, which I would argue is still like this core Anglo identity, even, the less likely it is to hold.
Yeah, it's hard to get Somalis in there.
Yeah, exactly. And the less likely people are to feel themselves like, the more stretched out like an ideal is, the less likely people are to see themselves represented in said ideal. And the more likely they are to be like dissatisfied, bitter, and feel like, some sort of misfit, and that just causes general resentment, just like low level resentment rising up from the majority of people. Can't fit, like, let's say, a certain mold. Especially when you get to the broader things go, the more things are relied upon, such as, especially in the context of America, like, where do you work? How much do you earn? Like those things. What have you accomplished? What school did you go to? These things are what come to define you. These are almost the only acceptable thing in terms of self-definition. What are your thoughts?
The way I see it, America has basically three indigenous ethnicities.
What are those?
White Americans, Black Americans, and Native Americans.
Yeah, I'm with you. I agree with you. I agree. Yeah.
And it's possible sometime in the future there may be some sort of sense of mestizo belonging or Hispanic belonging, but these sorts of things take centuries to form.
Yeah, they develop organically. Like even an example like Mexico. Like Mexico is sort of like somewhat organic, although it was forged in conquest. There was a somewhat organic hybrid between like Aztec and Spanish conquistador cultures that eventually ended up rising up, and that's what we know. So today, it actually ends up blending quite well. Yeah, sorry, Monsieur, go ahead.
It takes a very, very fucking long time, though.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not something that you can just do overnight. And then at the end of the day, you've still got lumps. You've still got, at the very top, largely conquistador Americans enjoying a splendid time.
I just want to little bit of a slight derail. So we got this Globo Homoist in chat. He made this. His name is Spiritual Mamzer or Conop. He says, "Ecce, we aren't really feeding." Oh, feeding. Oh, I misread. He said we aren't feeding the third world that much. I misread him. I thought he said feeling the third world, and I said, well. Conop is a notorious race mixer, and I said you're feeling the third world more than any of us here. But fucking A.
Oh my God, no beef stream. Settle down, buddy. Settle down.
I'm sorry. It was
Wow.
I had to point out my own good joke. You know, I had to laugh at my own joke. So
Yeah.
sorry, guys.
Okay. Anyhow, coming all the way back, please continue.
Yeah, let's talk about kicking out the Jews.
Oh my god.
Boy, babe.
What is your opinion, Monsieur? Like,
My opinion of what?
I mean, do you know what the JQ is, right? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, my opinion of the JQ
yeah,
is that there are little Jews, there are big Jews, okay?
yeah.
From what I've seen, big Jews are basically the same as me, except for some minor differences. Okay, all global homos are basically cut from the same global homo cloth.
Are you saying that you identify as a global homoist?
Yeah, I'm a native global homoist, but I'm sort of wandered into this camp somewhat intellectually. But that is my
We
my
found a
key-
global homo refugee.
Yeah, I'm a global homo. I'm an ethnic global homo, and I'm coming as a refugee to Wignat land. So please please let me live here.
I just want to go ahead and throw this out there.
So,
This is
so yes, as a refugee from global homo land, global homo culture is largely the same. When people like
That's
there's
the
this
point,
sort of
right?
when people are talking about the Jewish question, they start off talking about big Jews, and then they sort of shimmy over to talking about the little Jews, and eventually they're putting little Jews in camps, and the big Jews are just sort of smoking doobies and watching.
Yeah, chilling. Yeah, they're chilling.
I actually agree with that. Incidentally, I agree
Yeah.
with that analysis. And I
I mean,
want
it happens in Southeast Asia as well, where you've got the Chinese foreign elite, and then you've got like smaller Chinese who come to do peddling and other things, and they cheat the locals. And when the uprising comes, the Chinese elite, there's this post on Un's once where he says I married into a Chinese overseas family, and the revolution came, and they were just staying there, and he was like, we've got to get guns, we've got to do something, and they're like, we'll do it our way, we'll be fine, stop worrying. And sure enough, before the looter mob could break in, a tank rolled up on their front yard and pointed its guns at the rioters.
jeez.
So, but
Wait, no,
I mean,
wait,
here's-
no. Okay, I gotta stop on one
Yeah,
thing.
go ahead.
This is actually kind of important. I don't sexually identify as a Wignat, and indeed, no one here on this panel does. That said, I will say that
I was just joking.
Okay, I do personally identify as a nationalist for technical reasons.
I identify as a Nazi.
Okay, so that's all. So respect my pronouns. That's all.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm done. That's all. Anyway, but I'm sorry, but
But Nazi is different from Wignat. Thank you. So,
okay, but anyway, you were saying something. I'm sorry. Go on.
yeah. So the issue. I mean, when you bring up the idea of big Jews versus little Jews, I mean when the little Jews believe all the things that the big Jews want them to believe. I mean, at the end of the day, what functional difference is there between the two?
Well, sometimes I feel very frustrated, actually, by certain people. Is he here? Okay, like Levi, you give him a little bit of steak and he just fucking goes full ham on chat, just fucking defending this little territory he's carved out. It's like sometimes you gotta not take it so seriously, otherwise people will be mad at you. Is my opinion, but it fills a psychological need. I'm not sure if I'm explaining this clearly, but there's this anecdote from Nazi Germany where this normal Jewish guy, right, picks up the Daily Stormer. It's like, I read it every day. It's like, why? Because when I read it, I feel powerful and I feel good about myself. So when smaller Jews sort of play into this, it fulfills this need to feel powerful. And I would actually liken it to, white progressives who talk about how white people actually are responsible for everything bad on Earth, which is to say everything on Earth. Even though like a white progressive is not, like, many of them are basically broke urbanite losers, they say like I'm white privileged, therefore like I'm part of this, evil white conspiracy to rule the world. And a Jew who sort of defends like what they see as like the Jewish interest gets a similar psychological payoff. So whenever I see like these shitty TED Talks, like there's this TED Talk by this, Jewish loser journalist in New York, and he's like, "Guys, there are no wealthy elites ruling our society. It's the people that rule society." It's like this guy is basically orgasming on stage. The fact that he gets to go on TED and say this absolute bullshit.
Yeah. So, I mean, but so what exactly is your solution? I mean, you're saying that we should just like not feed the trolls? Is that what you're saying? I mean,
Christianity says pride is bad. Pride is one of the main manifestations of pride is virtue signaling. So that's like a great answer to whenever people start doing that. You just point at the book and you say pride is bad, and they may not stop, but at least they will feel bad about it.
I mean, that's kind of an interesting point because most of these, I mean, especially in America, these progressives, these democratic Jews, they don't give a shit about religion, right? They don't give a shit about Christianity. They don't give a shit.
Right. But you see, like you need, even if it's not Christianity or something, you need some sort of code that says like pride is bad. Stop right now. Like many sins are not just bad for your soul; they're also bad for you, like gluttony and pride.
Well, but I mean, have you heard the concept of it's one thing to be anti this or anti that, but it's another thing to be pro this or pro that? I mean, are you familiar with the
Religion
concept?
also has a positive message. If you are a good boy, you will receive rewards in the afterlife.
Well, I mean, forget the whole kind of spiritual afterlife thing because when we're talking about the JQ, I mean especially in America, the whole concept of the afterlife is like a complete non sequitur. Um, the I mean, how do you I mean, it's one thing to say that you progressives are being prideful or this or that, but it's another thing to actually get them to be for to defend their own people, to take their own side, as it were.
Yeah, it is very much. Where did Babs go? I hope he didn't pass out. He's drunk. Uh,
It's pretty late for Babs. I gotta cut
okay.
him back.
Well, I hope he'll be fine in the morning. Anyways, what was I? Oh yes. How do you make white people, especially white people, progressives, want to defend themselves?
Take their own side.
Take their own side. Yeah, that's a great question. Because whites have way more altruism than everyone else, and altruism makes you want to not take your own side. One way to raise your stakes is to give them things. Like the middle class is the bulwark of democracy because they believe they are the richest people. So that gives them a stake in democracy. A stake in the race or your own identity comes with being involved in like local communities, having a family, saying like I am part of this people and we live here. And I think that we live in an atomized society, and this is partly brought about by capitalism destroying traditional relations between people and replacing them with the money relation, right?
Well,
So,
not just capitalism, but more like
well, I think like
echo capitalism.
technology, capitalism. There's all these different factors, but the end result is you end up everyone's just bowling alone. You don't necessarily have communities of people with their neighbors, which is what you need to have. The sense of this is my people, this is my place. Everyone else piss off.
And real quick, I mean, just to kind of put the capstone on that, I mean, that's exactly why when I talked about it not being a race, but more of kind of like a domino effect. Once these kind of La Raza, Kevin De Leon, anti-white, Ilhan Omar type people, once they have dominant political power, like, once Texas goes blue, so on and so forth, I think that's when we're actually going to see more of these mentalities just naturally kind of mature. Um, I'm not sure if there's really we're kind of just in the we're just kind of there's a storm coming on the horizon, and there's no way to avoid it. We just have to sail through it, if that makes sense.
So if you want some practical red pilling advice, okay, one thing is that whites get really, really more, like, not fully to the dissident right, but at least they want to defend their own communities. If you talk about demographic change and a white minority, unfortunately, you can't talk about that without getting blasted. But what you can talk about, which will trigger similar reactions, is the China pill. That China is an aggressive foreign power that wants to control the world. It's already eating up as much of Europe as it can. It has historically tried to eat up the Central Asia and assimilate them and wipe out their identity. They're doing this exact process in Xinjiang, and you just sort of like talk about China, how it's subverting governments throughout what it perceives as its rightful sphere.
Mm-hmm.
It's taking all this influence in Canada and Australia. And if you frame things like that, you've got people thinking, well, the future is the white race against the yellow race. And that's how you have like Gore Vidal, who's a Democrat and very much a liberal. But in his book, The Last Empire, he does talk about the future form that America should take is essentially the empire is not going to disband itself, but it can decentralize. And so you can have a decentralized Europe composing of America, Europe, and Russia. Yeah. 13% of the world population, as he puts it. That's the sort of thing you can do by framing things in that way. And it's okay to be against Chinese dominion of the world. That's politically correct, or it's sayable.
That's funny because you're basically going full Alex Jones. I love it.
Well, I don't.
I'm not denigrating. No, I'm not denigrating. I'm not trying to make fun of you. I'm not.
It's a meme because he talked about gay frogs and water filters.
But okay,
wait a second. The gay frogs thing was actually true. He was actually right about the gay frogs.
It's true, but the Chinese thing is also true. Like Brookings has a fucking book. All these people have fucking books about China and its game plan and how it assimilates and like conquers. Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm.
Alex Jones is considered a crackpot because
you're not wrong.
You're not wrong.
No,
you're not wrong. But you do know, Monsieur, that Mao was basically put in power by the Yale kind of segment of society, which is basically Jewish.
Mao was put in power by a lot of things. The point is, my family lost the war. Still bitter about it. Don't fucking push.
Wait, are you like a Chiang Kai-shek supporter?
Oh my god. The spiel I give about like the same old families controlling the world since time immemorial is not total bullshit, okay? I'm not gonna go into more detail, but yes, that is the short version. Chiang Kai-shek people.
Yeah. I'm not saying anything bad. I'm just familiar with that history. So,
like people, I think that for a lot of subjects, there's basically a V pattern, where you have a belief that you start off is broadly correct, but you have almost none of the specifics. Then you sort of enter the middle level of education, and you take on this belief which is basically totally fucking wrong, and eventually you start seeing the real deal again. So like the low information thing is like the world is ruled by lizards type deal. But broadly speaking, this is correct. And Babs has agreed with my observation that a lot of people we know have quote unquote lizard eyes, including me. So like broadly speaking, that's correct. It's not because people are fucking lizards. That's nonsense. But you have powerful families stay powerful. Okay, Game of Thrones is more correct than the standard spiel you get in civics class. People learn more and they're like, no, we live in a democracy. There's voting and stuff, and it's equality and shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations. That's bullshit. Okay, people do not go shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations, and eventually they get around to like, you know, the world is controlled by wealthy elite families, and it always has been.
Well, I mean, do you disagree with that?
No, I'm saying that the world is controlled by wealthy elite families.
Okay, yeah.
And it always has been.
Yeah.
Sometimes they trade places. It's a constant low-level conflict for status and resources.
Yeah.
I trust that you think that I'm one of the nice lizards. Look,
So, but since there's been
But
conversations.
white people will think you were a nice lizard, but my Kyrgyz family is gonna have to say no Chinese whatsoever allowed.
I understand that.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious, Monsieur. I've talked with Duvid and other people about like the idea of the parasitic Jew and how they will basically be a vampire on an empire until that empire is sucked of all its blood, and then they'll move on to the next empire, right? For example, the Jews moved from Britain, from the city of London to New York, and maybe from New York to Hollywood. Although they still have a lot of power in New York. But when America has been bled dry, the next logical empire for the Jews to move to is China. But I'm sure you've heard the meme that the Chinese are the Jews of Asia. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the way, I mean, I'm kind of curious what your opinion is. Like, do you think it's even possible that Jews can kind of take over China, or are we seeing like kind of a law of diminishing returns to where this kind of mentality or strategy?
We're now getting to lizard versus lizard, OV.
Yeah, lizard versus lizard. Yeah.
I just okay. So before we go on that, I only just now noticed that Poseidon has popped in for a minute. So I just wanted to say hey to Poseidon. Hey, buddy, what's going on?
Hello, brother. Hello, and hello to your friends, your guests. How are you?
Seagal, Poseidon.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, have you seen Kyle? He's about this tall.
Okay.
Sorry, I keep forgetting what stream I'm on.
Yeah, it's okay. Anyway, hey Poseidon. So, all right, I do want to hear Monsieur's answer to Ovi's question about lizard versus lizard. But before I hear that, or before we all hear that, hey Poseidon, did you have any thoughts on any of the things that we've been talking about so far?
No, not really.
Okay, fair enough. Well, yeah, as I'm sure you're well aware, chime in if anything catches your fancy. So, Monsieur, I'd like to hear what you think about lizard versus lizard.
Sorry for bringing up the lizard terminology, but okay, so I would say that broadly speaking, in the aggregate, there can be no bad blood between lizards. Like, there's individual beefs, but when Jews talk about Jewish persecution, it's like they blah blah blah, and the little Jews have all these stories, right, of anti-Semitism, and the big Jews are like, we didn't get to golf in their country clubs for 10 years.
Oh yeah,
Which is-
yeah.
Which is like basically we intermarried. We did the same things. We worked in the same places. We hung out together. We didn't go into their country clubs for a very short period of time. Like
Yeah.
there's very little that separates lizard from lizard. Like Germany is a famous case because even before Weimar, in the Imperial Germany, Jews were already quite overrepresented among the German nobility. And the native German nobility did not see anything wrong with it. In Austria, it was the same thing. It's like, whatever. There's ultimately the ties of lizarddom transcend the ties to your native people. But the problem is that at some point, you get so divorced from the average Joe that you start saying, like, man, these peasants that live here, I fucking hate them. Better just start like drinking their blood and abusing their children for no reason. And that's the bad point. So what you need is a concerted propaganda effort to, make sure that they never consider themselves separate from the people, and to supplement that, regular beatings and executions. Stalin had the right idea.
Well,
Oh my
I'm
gosh.
kind of
Okay.
curious, if I may, real quick.
I'm completely serious.
Yeah.
Yeah,
A
but
little purge goes a long way.
Yeah,
Okay.
but here's
Oh my gosh.
real quick, Ecce. Because normally I would agree with you, but the one thing that I noticed that China is doing differently is that religion is kind of strongly regulated, regulated. Right, by the government in China, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so if you look at the actual recognized religions in China, you get Catholicism, you get Buddhism, you get regular Christianity, you get Islam Islam is recognized, and one other one, but there's one religion that is not recognized by the Chinese government. And I'm sure you see where I'm going with this.
I'm going to cut you off and say that most big Jews are secular, and that's the only one that really causes like massive problems in the long run. Because it's really not a defense mechanism at all.
Okay, interesting point. Yeah.
The biggest defense mechanism that China has is that if you start putting your own interests of your little elite family over those of the Chinese people and or Xi Jinping, he will just shoot you. He will have anti-corruption prosecutors.
Well, you're contradicting yourself. I mean, if you're saying that you're putting your influence over the Chinese people, so you're saying that the Chinese elites do care about the Chinese people as long as it's the Chinese elites having the influence over the Chinese people, not the Jews.
So?
Well, I mean, so the Chinese elites do care about the people. They won't just drink the Chinese blood, the Chinese peasant blood.
That's the healthy situation. Like I said,
absolutely.
You gotta restrain them with regular beatings.
But I mean, that's what we're talking about, though. Like, if we're talking about lizard versus lizard, the Chinese lizard will say, no, you can't drink my lizard blood. This is my lizard blood to drink. You can't drink it. This is my lizard blood. Drink your own lizard blood.
No, because you keep thinking of this like we're Chinese lizards and we're Jewish lizards and we're wasp lizards. All lizards are lizards. That's one of the key tenets.
But you just said that as long as they don't drink the peasant blood, then nothing matters. But I mean that is a key point. That is a key point. If who is drinking the peasant blood in China?
The Chinese ruling class is drinking.
So and that exactly proves my point, which is why.
What is your point?
The point is that the Jews are running into a law of diminishing returns to where their vampirism will not work on the Chinese elite.
I think you think of things in terms of an elite replacement theory, where they move in and they take over, and then there are no more Chinese lizards. There's only Jewish lizards. But it's more like, you know, when lizards show up at your shore, you say, "Hello, my brothers." Snake, snake. But there are certain rules like that govern the survival of lizarddom in a country as a whole, and like if this country goes down, everyone is going down unless you can leave.
Oh,
and
I would
say,
say
"Follow
that. I
your
would
passport."
say.
And
I would-
some people who see that as their exit strategy are not to like that's bad. And you should never, even if that is your exit strategy, you should never fucking talk about it. It's not my exit strategy, by the way. But like being like, I have multiple passports. That's fucking. That's don't say things like that. Anyway, the point is,
Anyone that has
like-
multiple passports, those people will be logged and noted. Moving on.
yes. The point is, like, when you're talking about like Jewish vampiric strategy, it's not actually good for them. The best thing that could have, the best thing that could have happened, okay, is for Jews in Germany to continue what they were doing the whole time at the same rate, rather than increased extraction during the Weimar period. And then secondly, this is a characteristic of all types of lizards, is that they want to drink as much blood as possible. But unfortunately, what I would say, so now I'm getting into ways that Jews are special hat. If you've noticed with Luke and Kyle and others, is that one very distinctive thing about Jews is that they equate power with virtue.
Mhm.
So if you're powerful, you are a good guy.
Mhm.
This is an extremely deadly idea,
Oh, yeah.
because sucking more blood makes you more powerful, but it also makes you a bad guy. That kind of person needs to be morally policed and, you know, thrown out of a window. But if you believe that power equals righteousness, you will never morally police that. So it is an extremely dangerous idea. And any civilization that adopts the idea of might makes right is setting itself up for a long-term disaster.
Yeah, because that was actually...
So what I would do with Jews is, you know, make sure that they strongly internalize Christian ideas of might is not necessarily right. In fact, meekness is right.
Okay.
You said meekness, right? MEEK.
Yeah.
Yes, like turn the other cheek. Do not show the whip hand.
And
Do not-
Jews are utterly incapable of doing that.
Well,
They-
that's bad.
Yeah. Well,
That's
yeah.
bad for me. That's directly bad for me, because it doesn't really matter what happens when the ant people rise up to consume the lizards. It doesn't really matter, you know. So I mean, this is directly speaking bad for my future. So I would like this not to happen. Okay, might is not right.
By the way, I'm sorry to derail. Monsieur, are you taking a bath right now? Are you? Huh?
Fucking look taking baths. I'm
What?
like Marab.
I'm just gonna throw this out there. This is probably my favorite stream for the single purpose of some freaking Chinese kind of bathtub is streaming with us. I don't know why that's so funny.
The warmth warms my cold blood, you know?
Oh fucking A!
I love it. All right.
Look, I'm a very tiny lizard. I'm like one of those miniature geckos people.
So you're the lizard in the cupboard, the one that's really cute. That everyone's like, "Oh yay! Look at what I've got." Huzzah.
Yeah, and then Babs is like a blue gecko, and then you've got like people like Epstein who are more like an iguana, and then you have crocodiles that are.
All right.
Oh,
Moto dragons.
Yeah.
There are no dragons. Who told you about the fucking dragons?
There's
Shut it down.
there's a comment in chat for you, Monsieur, asking you about the Hakka, Hakka.
Yeah, that's just an ethnic group. What about them?
I don't know. He just says to ask the Chinaman about the Haka.
I never focus on ethnic groups as a whole when it comes to lizard dynamics, because you have basically, the lizard component of a population is a very small percentage, which survives by convincing the rest of the ethnic group that we are the same, guys. So give us your money. And they provide in exchange interesting ideas. These ideas range from the useful to the extremely dangerous, like postmodernism. Did you enjoy it?
So I'm getting some follow-up comments. Apparently, the person who asking this is Mirage. He says, "I heard they are lizards," referring to the Haka. China's lizards.
Again, like singling out ethnic groups is in my view a mistake, because you end up talking about like Jews are the lizards, but the person who
Jews
runs
are
the deli,
Jews are predominantly lizards.
the person who runs the deli is not a lizard. Levi is not a lizard. Levi is just like, a regular person.
To an extent. I mean, but we talked about this earlier, right? I mean, the little Jews oftentimes are influenced by the big Jews, right?
Yes. It's sort of like how regular whites are influenced by like the propaganda machine.
Yeah.
All around them.
Yeah.
Which is bad, by the way. I think that the media is one of the most interesting political inventions of the past few centuries, which has been introduced into human polities never evolved around this institution of the media. Okay, there was not this fourth estate. You have your nobles, aka your lizards. You have the church. You have the king. You have the people. You don't have the fucking media. And the media, I suspect, is the cause of all manners of distortions and maladies in our society. But I'm sure that many of you agree with that.
Well, I definitely agree with that.
Anyways, but yeah, the Haka as a whole, probably not a big deal. If you want to talk about like who is China's lizards, you would probably want to call Professor Clark and ask what data set he used for his China chapters in The Sun Also Rises, because he compiled lists of notable families that had lasted centuries. And some of the more famous ones you can just pick out immediately. Like the family that ruled the Ming Dynasty, the Zhus. Zhu Rongji was, I believe, premier of China underneath the Chinese Communist Party. He was one of the very top men. So that's a lizard family. There are more. It'd be hard to get a list. You have in a traditional society, you have lizards, you have Wololo guys, you have villagers, and you have the king who sits in the castle.
Did you say Wololo?
Yeah, Wololo. Like they raise their staff and they're like Wololo. Okay.
Wait, did you ever play Age of Empires?
Yes. That's
okay. Okay, just making sure.
Polities are designed to sort of pit these powers against each other, right? Like the king will try to crush the lizards will subvert the church and the king. The media tips the balance of power in a very strange and destructive way. It pushes things that raise its own power. And what raises the power of the media is encouraging people to do stupid bullshit and not think for themselves.
Oh, fucking A. Wololo. Sorry.
What the fuck kind of stream has just happened?
Ecce,
this is what happens when you soften your heart and you loosen the border control.
No, I know. Yeah, the funny thing is that earlier I was like, I'm gonna go ahead and maintain strict border control, and then boom, this happens. This is funny.
And then a wild Chinaman appears.
Yeah, it's just funny. It's just funny. But I mean, I'm enjoying. This is entertaining. So I'm completely cool with that. Anyway, okay. Now, coming back to the concept of there are some lizards that are none too pleasant. If they're just they're a bit of a thing, and I can't. Okay, so I guess I have no choice but to burn the stream because we're already borderline fed posting. There's nothing to be done about that. But yeah, oh gosh, I don't.
I can stop saying lizard.
Yeah, well, but it's a convenient it's a convenient label, so we'll go with that for now. And when I say fed posting, I'm actually talking about actions to be taken, because you were saying that one way that it has worked to keep the lizards in check, not that you're advocating it, but one way that China has kept their lizard population in check is through a combination of propaganda and also a strong whip hand, but only for the lizard people. Am I?
Yeah.
I'm getting that correct, yeah?
Right. So a place like China or a place like the Soviet Union, he gives Stalin the whip hand, and if he's upset, he takes his closest lizard and just beats the shit out of him.
Now, how does that... So, for example, Jeffrey Epstein, bit of a lizard person, not exactly in group, but it doesn't really matter because he's still lizard people. He was outed as having done some not so good things. It took way too long for him to be arrested, but whatever. Would you count that as an example of, for want of a better phrase, whip hand?
No.
Okay, what's a better example of a whip hand?
Because Epstein it wasn't burned because he was no longer useful to the other lizards, and he was now a liability. That's an example of lizards exercising their power more than it is punishment.
Okay.
One classic example is Louis XIV and the powerful nobles who fomented previously the Fronde. Louis XIV gets all the lizards, and he puts them in a box, and he shows them, the entertainments of court life, and they all become harmless. That is non-violent pest control. It had other repercussions, but we'll deal with those later.
Okay, so carrot and stick. You're saying that showing them the carrot is one way to deal with it. Now,
it's not necessarily a carrot. It's more that if they are kept amused and kept away from real power and just left in a fun box, they are not necessarily a threat. And the stick is, if they become more of a threat, purges. Okay.
Well, yeah, I mean that's kind of the issue with Jewish power, or dealing with the Jewish question, is that the Jews are kind of unique amongst all of these lizard people in that their power has been derived from their diaspora, or their kind of a middleman mentality. It's never that the Jews have been powerful in Israel. The Jews have only derived their power from being in Europe. Banking. The Rothschild family, or whatever. The Warburgs, or whatever it might be. Or the Adelsons, or the Soroses. Their power has always been derived from this, as we were talking about before, this kind of vampiric kind of mentality. Not necessarily like it's completely different from a Chinese.
No, I'm a vampire. I'm a vampire, but there's a difference between what you might call a transnational and a national, or the person who polishes passports versus the person who's forced to stay still. In sort of the reactionary sphere, they call the person forced to stay still your local stationary bandit, or you might call them your local vampire lizard chained to the wall. And because they are obliged to maintain the area around them somewhat nice, they have different incentives than if you can just fucking leave. That's why I think, one useful law, okay, completely nonviolent, is if you reach a certain level of status, you can't have other passports, like full stop. You can't have other passports. You can't have ties to other countries. You can't even own property in other countries. You must maintain a certain amount of wealth within trusts held in the U.S. And the trustees, in this case, will be the U.S. government or some other trusted figure, maybe like a state government or some sort of council of local elders led by a tribune of the plebs. Maybe that would be best because that would be most direct to the people.
I like that. No, what you're talking about, I want to use this phrase because it's funny for me. That resonates with me. I like that.
Right. So, like, talking about me, so much of my wealth is tied up in literally land that I cannot take it with me.